Good morning or good afternoon to Wielkopolska Business Destination Asia 2020. Today, Cambodia, a dynamically developing countries. In 2000, there was only one building with an elevator. Today, in the capital city, there are many skyscrapers and more are forthcoming. Cambodia is part of ASEAN, and ASEAN countries are all developing very rapidly, have a growing middle class, and have an increasing demand for European products. The organizers of this conference is the local government of Wielkopolska, the Polish Chamber of Importers, Exporters and Cooperation, and Wielkopolska Development Fund. A broadcast on YouTube will be available in Polish only, but for our English-speaking guests, we have simultaneous interpretation service at the website of the Polish Chamber of Import, Export and Cooperation. So let's go. Destination Asia. I will give the floor to Mr. Jacek Bogusławski, member of the board of Wielkopolska. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to Destination Asia 2020. It is our great honor to host Mr. Bora Samheng, Undersecretary of State in the Ministry of Commerce of the Kingdom of Cambodia, Mr. Paweł Mokrzycki, Attaché for Economic Affairs in the Polish Embassy in Bangkok, Mr. Tassilo Prinzer, President of EuroCham Cambodia, and Mr. Denis Saint-Martin, Managing Director of EuroCham Cambodia, and the entrepreneurs who operate in that region. I'm glad that many of you represent our region, Wielkopolska. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for hosting us in Cambodia in January this year, and today we follow up on the discussions we started in January. In the beginning of the year, we were more than certain that this follow-up will take place here in Poznan, and you will be personally present here. But COVID has forced us to change the plans. Nevertheless, we would like to take this opportunity to explore the possibilities for business cooperation. ASEAN countries are of particular importance for us. ASEAN is a regional political and business organization with a population of 650 million people, and in terms of GDP, ASEAN is the sixth biggest economy in the world. The European Union is the second largest trade partner of ASEAN, smaller only than China, which creates a lot of business opportunities. The business meetings with EuroCham Cambodia and Cambodian Commerce of Industry confirmed that this is one of the best destinations for European companies, and many European businesses already successfully operate there. Many businesses are being moved from China to Cambodia. So the business of Wielkopolska Destination Asia 2020 started in Cambodia not by accident. As I already mentioned, COVID forced us to redefine our plans. But the future is still ahead of us, and we plan to continue our talks next year. Today's conference is a fantastic opportunity to take a first glance at Cambodia and to open the door to future business contacts. I am more than certain that consistent cooperation and close collaboration between public authorities and private companies will foster our cooperation and inspire further growth of our regions and countries. Last but not least, once again, I would like to thank all of you for being with us and looking forward to a fruitful meeting. Thank you very much. Cambodia has a lot of assets. We will be encouraging our entrepreneurs to take a closer look at that market. This is an excellent market, and I'm happy that we have online tools that allow us to be virtually in Cambodia today. Thank you very much. Before we give the floor to experts in Cambodian markets, let me say that many entrepreneurs think about whether this is the right time to expand. So let's take a look at the current performance of Polish exporters and about availability of funds for further growth. And this will be a presentation by Mr. Wojciech Marcinkiewicz, President of the Management Board of the Wielkopolska Development Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It is a great pleasure for Wielkopolska Development Fund to be co-host of Wielkopolska Business Destination Asia 2020. Earlier this year, we had a study visit to Cambodia, and back then we made a lot of interesting contacts, and it is a great pleasure to welcome our Cambodian partners. I am more than happy that you accepted our invitation. Business is a relationship between people. Only when we act together we can build something lasting. I am more than certain that with the support of the Ministry of Commerce and EuroCham, our local businesses supported by our fund will successfully operate in the distant market. I would like to encourage all the business people who are here with us today to look optimistically in that direction. The pandemic has forced us to redefine the way we look at the world, but I am more than certain that next year we will be back on the growth track. When I talk to business people and when I look at the Polish export figures, I am more than optimistic. The report of the Polish Statistical Office confirms that after the first 3 quarters of 2020, companies have adapted very well to the new situation. The Polish exporters have already overcome the largest crisis in March, April, over to July, when export fell by 8.4%. Right now, after 3 quarters, we are only 4% below last year. And the export volume was greater than import volume by 7.5 billion euro. So import fell by 8%. So the surplus, the positive trade balance this year is 7.5 billion euro. Last year it was 0.5 billion. So as you can see, the Polish market is very resilient, and Polish companies successfully look for new opportunities. Maybe the pandemic is an opportunity to explore new markets. So far, we concentrated on European markets. Obviously, Europe is closer, and it accounts for 80% of our sales markets. But we can see that there is more and more interest in Far East countries. I do encourage Polish companies to stay open-minded, to think about new markets. This year has proven that diversification is key to stay alive, to secure a stable future. So please do stabilize your markets, differentiate your markets to make sure that your portfolio stays secure. Now, let me briefly tell you a little bit about our fund. The Wielkopolska Development Fund is a company fully owned by the authorities of the Wielkopolska region. Our mission is to contribute to the growth of the region, and we foster that growth by supporting entrepreneurs, small and medium enterprises. We invest funds in the growth of urban areas. We do energy performance projects, and we use funds allocated by the Wielkopolska region to EU-funded initiatives. Jeremy and Jessica, one of them was a fund based on loans dedicated for SMEs. The other fund, the other initiative, was dedicated to revitalization of urban areas. Another area of our operation is loans and bank guarantees. On top of that, we promote our region as an investor-friendly, vibrant economic community. The Wielkopolska Development Fund offers funds for SMEs. As part of those two initiatives, we have managed 900 million euro. On top of that, we offer market knowledge and excellent experts. You will meet some of them today. And also, we open the door to other countries. We foster collaboration. We have an extensive network of contacts. I will be talking about that later on. So we are a matchmaker for companies looking for international growth. So we try to listen carefully to local businesses. We want to understand their expectations. We want to know exactly what they need to grow, and on that basis we tailor-made solutions that help them do just that. Our offer includes a wide array of financial instruments. All the details can be found on our website at www.wfr.org.pl. So we have a regional loan and an expansion loan and a number of instruments involving financial intermediaries. Those intermediaries are financial institutions who directly disperse the funds to businesses. So in our portfolio we have a number of loan instruments and a number of guarantees. We also have some COVID-dedicated instruments that have been widely popular among local businesses. In my personal opinion, and I hope you will share it, we offer very affordable terms. Our loans can be used to finance amounts including VAT. Repayment is convenient. The borrower can choose whether to pay equal installments or gradually reducing installments. The expansion loan, I would like to talk about this instrument in detail because it's intended for companies who want to expand to other markets. So, if you want to expand, you need more funds. You can use a loan like that. The only limitation here is that if you want to use that loan, you must be present in Wielkopolska. So you must either be registered here or have your operations here. The terms and conditions are on the slide. So the amount is 0.5 to 10 million zloty. The repayment period is up to 15 years. Interest rate starts at 1.29. And your own share is very low. The actual percentage depends on the amount you want to borrow. And what can you finance with those loans? Well, you can see those items on the screen. So you can either make some capital expenditures or operating expenses. You can buy or rent land or property. You can invest in human capital. You can lease equipment. Another instrument I would like to discuss in detail. Again, it could also be used for fueling your exports. But as a rule, it's dedicated to those businesses who do public procurement projects in Wielkopolska. So if a company is awarded a public contract, they can get a regional loan and use that loan to finance the project. So the amount is up to 20 million. And the repayment period can be up to 20 years if the contract is long enough. On top of those products, we have some COVID-dedicated solutions. As many other financial institutions, we follow the market and we have introduced solutions to support companies that struggle with the consequences of the pandemic. As I mentioned, we have a number of other instruments. You can see them on the slide. These instruments are distributed through financial intermediaries. There are quite a lot of them. I will not be listing them, but if you're interested, you will find them on our website. These funds include a mortgage loan, sustainable energy loan, revolving loan. That's for those companies who don't directly suffer from COVID, but have problems with liquidity. We also have a liquidity loan. This is one of the COVID-related instruments. We implemented it in April, and we have launched them through two of our intermediaries. And the total budget for that instrument is 142 million zlotys. So far, we have funded 850 businesses with 100 million zloty. More applications are coming in. There's a lot of interest in that loan. Another COVID instrument is an intervention guarantee. This is managed by the Fund for the Growth and Promotion of Wielkopolska. That fund offers guarantees for companies up to 1 million zloty, and the guarantee period is 63 months for trade transactions and 87 months for investment transactions. An innovation here is that the guarantees can be used to cover good workmanship bonds and performance bonds. In the beginning, I mentioned that the Wielkopolska Development Fund offers support in establishing contacts with new areas. We want to show local companies that they can go global, and one of our products is a cycle of doing business in meetings. We've had more than 10 of them, and they have been very popular. Until June this year, these meetings were held on site, both in Poznań, in our office, as well as in other towns of the region. Right now we have moved online. You can see some screenshots from the last couple of meetings in June, and the one on the right was dedicated to the Ukraine, and it took place in December. We had over 200 live participants. So please do stay in touch with us. I know that many companies have started their business contacts and successfully entered international markets. In our materials in our website, we will share the success stories to inspire you to follow suit. So please take a look at our website. You will find our contact details. Call us, drop us a line, or visit us. We will be happy to assist you. And also, I do encourage you to work with Polish companies that operate in the countries that we work for. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now we are moving to Cambodia, and we will meet the Under-Secretary of State, who will give us an account of a handful of information about Cambodia.
Halo, halo, czy się widzimy i czy się słyszymy? Dystans jest do pokonania.
There is a long distance for the connection, so between Poznań and Cambodia, so maybe there is some delay, but I do hope that in a minute we will successfully connect.
W takim razie chwila przerwy, zobaczmy jeszcze raz widoki z Kambodży.
So let's take this time and have a look at some views from Cambodia. Okay, so we are already connected with Cambodia. We have the presence of Mr. Bora Samheng, His Excellency, Undersecretary of the State at the Ministry of Commerce of the Royal Government of Cambodia. Thank you very much that you agreed to participate in our conference. So the floor is yours. You're most welcome. Yes, you can start.
Good afternoon. Okay. Okay. My apologies for that. Good afternoon, Mr. Jacek Bogusławski, and the organizing body. We truly appreciate their participation, and I am very happy to be here today. And I hope that this will offer us a fruitful beginning to many new projects that we could do together with Poland. Also, a good afternoon to Mr. Wojciech Marcinkiewicz, the president of the management board of the Regional Development Fund. Good afternoon to Mr. Andrzej, Łyko. A good afternoon to Mr. Paweł Mokrzycki as well. And good afternoon to Mr. Tatsilo Brinski from the EuroCham, as well as Mr. Dennis Saint-Marie from EuroCham as well. I do apologize if we are having some technical difficulties, but within this afternoon, I hope that I will be able to present a ballpark of what Cambodia is able to offer, and hopefully that we could attract some more business from Poland. So without further ado, I would like to begin my presentation. Okay, so my name is Samheng Bora. I am an Undersecretary of State of the Ministry of Commerce of the Royal Government of Cambodia. And I will be presenting to you potential trade and investment opportunities in Cambodia. And I had a bit of, I was listening through Mr. Wojciech's presentation just now, and I see that there are so many potential field of investment that we could look into. So I'm hoping that this might offer us some attraction for everyone to hopefully grab in Cambodia. So for the content today, I will speak a little bit about the Cambodia economic performance, investment opportunities in Cambodia, reasons to invest, how the Ministry of Commerce itself is working hands and foot in order to create a better strategy, more encompassing strategy for reforms. And we are also including some industrial development policies, trade sizes with Poland, and how tourism is working in Cambodia despite the current pandemic. So on the next slide, I will begin by presenting a bit, and I think we've seen it has been touched upon earlier as well. So Cambodia is, I think, we have been very famous in the recent years for being a very fast-growing economy at 7.2% per annum. This is, of course, prior to the pandemic, but we were the poster child of a fast-growing economy where we were able to even graduate from the LDC level. And in this perspective, we have been very proud of who we are in terms of being able to build an economic environment that attracts a lot of investors and to promote so much growth in Cambodia. Unfortunately, the pandemic came along and the growth stalled completely, but this is a worldwide phenomena. And of course, it went down to -2%, but this is not a long-term thing because we all know that the rate of growth will continue to grow once we are able to deal with this pandemic worldwide. And we are expected to see more than somewhere in the ballpark of 7% again from 2001 onwards. So we are very optimistic, and the pandemic itself should not offer as a obstacle to attract new investment, because we all know that growth will continue. This robust increase, and especially in the development of Cambodia in general, is owed a lot to the industrial sector. While there was some decline in the agricultural sector, but industrially speaking, there are more investment in SEZ, more investment in development of industries itself. So currently, Cambodia is very skill driven. We have been focusing on the development of our labor forces. So this will create a very attractive environment for new investors. And this is also a top priority of our developmental agenda as well. On the second graph, you will notice the GDP increase as well. We have seen a noticeable amount of increase from $11 billion in 2010 to $27 billion in 2019, and this has the merchandise of trade in general went from $9 billion to all the way to $35 billion. So the trade intensity is very crucial to our development. And of course, you can see a bit about the exchange rate as well. It has been it's floating between 4,200 to 4,000 reals, and it's stabilized. It's quite a stabilized currency. But one of our highlight in general is when people start to talk about the Cambodian economy and the attractiveness of it all is always towards the labor force. We have a very young population. Our labor force is very driven and is very full of energy and drive to help the company that invest, the investors that comes to in Cambodia achieve more. They are open to learning and they are very alive. To say the least, as in they are very full of energy in terms of being able to learn, to grow, and to help develop industries or the type of investment that comes in. And the age group in general is between 15 to 24 account for 2/3 of the population, and this is a very, very attractive age groups in terms of labor force development. So on the next slide, we have. You will see how investment in Cambodia has been critical to the momentum of our growth. We have capital investment, which has increased significantly from $4.2 billion in 2005 to around $9.4 billion in 2015. I'm sorry. And this, of course, we only take into account the qualified investment projects according to our laws and on investments. And investment from all of these investment, if you break it down, you will see a tremendous amount coming from the local, our local investors, followed by investors from China, Japan. And then we have smaller investment projects from Vietnam, the Virgin Islands, Singapore, Korea, Malaysia, Thailand, and the UK as well. Because we have a very open policy to foreign investment, the inflow of FDI in Cambodia has risen tremendously to $3.6 billion in 2019. And about 2.3 of that is from is in the financial sector. And Cambodia actually ranks as the 5th for the FDI hosting economics among its peers for LDCs. According to OECD FDI regulatory restrictiveness index of 2017, Cambodia scored better than the average of ASEAN in terms of openness to FDIs. So this offer us as you can see, this offer us an assurance for investors to see that we are very open to what investors can expect in terms of policy and in terms of leniency for investments. And in this, the accumulative FDI between 1994 to 2019, of course, the largest share is from China at 22%, followed by Korea at 6%, and then the UK at 5%. And as I've mentioned before, other FDIs include Malaysia, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Vietnam, Singapore, and Thailand. China mostly invests in the field of infrastructure and resource development, and there is some investment in rubber and tourism as well. And as for other countries, mostly in the government sector. On the next slide, you will see a bit about Cambodia's current tax agendas for investment. And as you could see here, we offer some of the lowest rates for tax, for corporate tax at 20%. And we also offer the range itself can go all the way down to 0% depending on what type of tax holidays you are able to apply for. And then we also have different levels of taxation depending on the size of the business or the investment that comes in and the type of investments itself. So as you can see here, this is very usually when you talk to investors, they always come in and they're looking at what is the country doing in terms of tax and how much of their profit is being taxed. So this gives you a ballpark of how Cambodia is making efforts in order to make sure that a company is able to profit properly and that tax is only one aspect of the entire picture, instead of the full aspect. Yeah. The tax holiday period itself, I must reiterate and highlight as well, is that you could apply all the way up to a maximum of 9 years, depending on what your criteria and the entity of your investment. So this is, like I mentioned, is very attractive. There are full import duty exemptions. There is an investment one-stop service. There is a fast-track system into registration. So there is a lot of ways that Cambodia is pushing our services in order to make sure that investment is attractive for everyone. So there is a list of investment guarantee that you could see on the right side, with no discrimination, no nationalization, no requirements of local equity participation, no price controls on products or services, no restriction on foreign exchanges, and no capital control. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I would hope to highlight and show you that Cambodia is really opening our door to more investors. On the next slide, I will summarize a bit about the reason why you should invest in Cambodia. You will probably see me or hear me highlight quite a bit on how open we are in terms of how we want to attract new investment. So this is why an open economy is always mentioned when you are talking to Cambodians about FDIs and attracting new investment. As you can see there, we really push for equal treatment of all investors, no requirement for local equity, again, for participation, no price control, no restriction on foreign currency and convertibility. We have some of the lowest tax rates for corporate, and we have a lenient tax holiday service. Then we have a full import duty exemption as well for certain types of products and equipment. Our economy, as I've mentioned earlier in the presentation, is one of the fastest growing. We have been applauded regularly by the WTO on how quick we are able to develop during the past 10 years. And our inflation rate is low and very, very manageable at under 5%. The currency is very stable, and even the exchange rate, currency convertibility itself is very lenient. Our one-stop service, this is a newly established service where companies could come in and do a very fast-track one-stop service where they could do from registration all the way to licensing, headed by the Ministry of Finance and Economic. So all of these is just some of the reasons to invest in Cambodia, and I have more reasons to tell you on the next slide. as I've mentioned before, Cambodia is a very, very young and dynamic country. We are very open to learning new processes. We are very open to technology. I believe that Cambodia was able to leapfrog from an industry that was one number behind all the way to the current industrial revolution of 4.0. And at this point, you see Cambodia going from not even having a TV in a house to having a smartphone in almost every single teenager's hands. So this is some fast-paced development that Cambodia is seeing, and it is part of a reason where you could use the dynamic or the dynamism of Cambodian youth in order to push your investment further. It shows that we are very open to learning new abilities, new skill. Our government is also pushing or putting a priority on developing STEMs in a STEMs program into education, and you could see that the young population in Cambodia is really developing their skills much more applicably for the current and modern application of businesses. We are 1 in 5 of the people here is aged between 15 and 24, and 2/3 of the population is under 30 itself. And the literacy rate is much higher than before at 92.2%. And we have a very competitive minimum wage as well at $182 in 2019. And I think the rate itself is very competitive. Location-wise, Cambodia is part of ASEAN. Technically, we are in the middle of ASEAN. We are only about 1 hour and 30 minutes away from any countries within the region. We are also part of the Greater Mekong Sub-region, the GMS. So in terms of infrastructure, telecommunication, and power transmission, we are well equipped. The broad market access and the preferential trade status we have include with ASEAN. We have FTAs with China. That is big news recently. And we are working on the FTA with Korea as well. And then we have part of our RCEP. We have GSPs with developed countries like the US, EU, UK, Canada, etc. And for instance, for RCEP, for just the RCEP, you could see that there are 3 billion consumers. And then if you combine that with the GDP, you have 22 trillion and accounts for around 30% of global trade. So these are some of the major opportunity that investors that comes into Cambodia is able to may be able to look into in terms of developing their market further. Cambodia FTA with China also gives higher prospect to trade and investment, especially in agriculture, agro industry, and animal husbandry as well. And then we have the ASEAN partner FTA further. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the FTA with Korea. So as you can see, we are working on, the government is working very hard to create more free trade agreements all over the world with key markets, key sub-regions and regions. And we are pushing in a way that will also promote further development in terms of economy for Cambodia as well. And in this sense, the better the economy in Cambodia, the more open we are, the more attractive it can be. And this is why I keep reiterating the same thing as well. For the third reasons to invest in Cambodia, as you will see on the next slide, is Cambodia has been emphasizing on the SEZ. And they are the special economic zones. And when investor comes in, you could find all of these. You could see on this slide, you will see a map of all of the SEZ currently is in operation in Cambodia. There are 45 SEZs approved, and 17 of them are in operation. And it is a very diversified group of SEZs. So if you are, if investor comes in, they can pick and choose between which one offers what sorts of amenities and what sorts of services. And most of these SEZs are able to accommodate many of the one-stop services that most investors would want as well. There are open door policies for Cambodia and attractiveness in the destination in the region, attracting many industrial clusters. And this also helps us maintain a very sustainable and inclusive economic growth as well. These on the next slide. Yeah. Next slide. So the industrial development, this is part of the industrial development policies that I've mentioned at the very beginning. We are developing potentials for new industries. We are focusing on creating better ecosystem for SMEs. We are pushing better production line, or I guess value chain support for the agro-industrial production, and especially for the export and domestic markets. On the various types of supporting industries that we have, like agriculture, tourism, textiles. Recently, of course, due to the pandemic, tourism has been hit hard. But we do know that because Cambodia is a very tourism-centric country, especially with Angkor Wat, especially with all of our sacred temples all around the country, and our many pristine beaches around the Siem Reap area. This is also one of the reasons why we have been able to attract so many investors to Siem Reap, because of the beauty of our beaches and the beauty of our temples. But so we expect that the tourism industry will rebound as soon as the pandemic is able to leave us in peace. We also have the industry serving regional production lines. As you could see in number 5, there is an importance to how ICT is able to communicate here. Currently, the Royal Government of Cambodia, through the Ministry of Commerce, has been working hard on developing strategies for e-commerce. We have just launched the e-commerce law as well. And this is also to protect investors as well as the consumer as well, in terms of how to regulate products, ensuring product quality, ensuring proper payment, ensuring that the protection of the entire process. So, and we also notice that the younger population that Cambodia is currently having right now is that they are able to adapt to these sort of development quite easily, especially in terms of e-commerce. So this is our adaptability and our flexibility in economy, in the labor force, and even in the consumer sector. It's part of a very synergetic period. We are in a very synergetic period where most of our sectors are able to work in congruence in order to create the development that you see prior to the pandemic itself. And on the next slide, I hope to visit a bit on the trades that Cambodia is currently seeing with Poland. Some of the products that Cambodia is currently exporting to Poland include textile, footwear products, cereal, electrical machinery and equipment, organic chemical, articles of iron and steel, plastics, and vehicles. And on the other side, where some of the products that we actually import back include iron, steel, animal fodders, products of milling industry, machinery, mechanical appliances, paper, dairy products, articles of apparels, and clothing accessories. The bilateral trade itself between 2015 and 2019 has increased, and this is a very positive view that we seek, and we hope that it will continue to increase. And at 20%, from $120 million to more than $140 million. And we are very optimistic that this bilateral trade will continue to increase, whether or not the pandemic persists. And what we also notice as well is that the core export products of each side are not quite overlapped. So this offer us an extra nudge for opportunities that we could see. Further, as trade between Cambodia and the entire region of Europe has also increased dramatically from $1 billion to over $5 billion respectively in 2010 to 2019. On the next slide, I hope to visit a bit into some of the interesting points on how Cambodia is doing, especially in terms of exports to other countries. We are currently exporting to 147 countries, which account for 60% of the GDP, a very high export intensity that we are having. Cambodia imports from 135 countries. Cambodia is the 10th biggest rice exporting countries in the world. And then we have been enjoying, again, the 7% growth rate from since 1994 till 2015. And of course, most countries would like to avoid the numbers that is currently coming up due to the pandemic. But despite the pandemic, our future prospect is still looking at 7% growth rate again. So then we are very optimistic, and this is a point that I want to reiterate as well for potential investor, and especially anyone at all that is interested in investing in Cambodia, is that our resilience is something that matters to investors. Investor can study Cambodia in general, that because we have developed through many periods of many periods of development, many periods of revolutions, industrial revolutions, and we have always been very resilient as an economy. We have been always recover from economic crisis quite well. And I believe that despite the pandemic, I believe that Cambodia will be able to recover from this situation fruitfully as well. And I believe that the economy of Cambodia will see that 7% growth rate again once the pandemic is over. On the final slide, I hope to one more slide over. Yeah. And on the final slide, I hope to present to you again about our very attractive country. It is a beautiful country full of nature, full of attractive tourist site. And I do hope that I noticed that during Mr. Wojciech presentation that he had come with a delegation to Cambodia earlier this year, and it was unfortunate that I wasn't able to invite you or accompany you to many beautiful areas in Cambodia. And I hope that during your next visit, maybe perhaps we could meet up and I could show you some of the sights and scenes of Cambodia, and hopefully help hope Poland to understand and see how attractive Cambodia is as a investment area, as well as a tourism country. And we have a very attractive service industry that is ready to accommodate any and all tourists. And this, of course, will come once flights are reopening and journeys are beginning to happen. But we are ready to welcome all tourists, and we are looking forward to seeing everyone come to Cambodia again. And this concludes my presentation. The final slide. This concludes my presentation. I truly thank the organizing team of the board, and I thank you, Mr. Jacek, and as well as Lydia for helping with all of the arrangement. Of course, with all this pandemic, it has not been easy to to keep always in contact, but I think you have done a wonderful job, and I hope that you will help Cambodia find more investors and that we can push this trade and investment opportunity for Cambodia even further. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation to Cambodia. We know this is Friday afternoon, just before the weekend. Thank you for the time you have devoted to us and your openness to our Wielkopolska business. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. So in January, the delegation from the Bielsko region, led by the Marshal of the Wielkopolska region, visited Cambodia to establish new contacts, but this will be reviewed by Andrzej Łyko, who is the chairman, the president of the Polish Chamber of Commerce for Importers, Exporters and Cooperation, co-host of today's event.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Andrzej Łyko, and I am the chairman of the Polish Chamber of Commerce of Importers, Exporters and Cooperation, and I have a brief presentation about the study visit to Cambodia that has been mentioned on a few occasions today. So in January 2020, as Lydia said, a delegation from Wielkopolska, including myself, went to Cambodia, and I will try to show you the preliminary conclusions from that visit. Let me begin with some general information about the country. As the minister explained, Cambodia is located in Southeast Asia, in Indochina Peninsula. It borders with Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. So this is a country in the very center, in the very heart of the Indochina region. The political system is a constitutional monarchy. The surface area is 181,000 of square kilometers, so half of the territory of Poland, give or take. The population is 16 million, so just under a half of the Polish population. The GDP per capita is around $1,400. The administrative division is into 24 provinces, and each province is headed by governors, provincial governors. Cambodia enjoys an equatorial monsoon climate. The year is divided into two seasons, the dry seasons and the rainy seasons. The rainy season starts in May and continues until October. So if you want to visit Cambodia, then I recommend the dry season. Interestingly, in Cambodia, you can use two currencies. So you can use dollars in everyday shopping, you can freely use them, and simultaneously there is real, the national currency. One Polish zloty is approximately 1,000 reals. The dollar to real exchange rate is approximately 4,000. As the minister mentioned, the economy has four main pillars. One of them is agriculture. Agriculture is dominated by high-quality rice, fruit, and spices. Cambodia is known as the world's leading supplier of pepper. Industry, textile industry, textile companies that produce for the European Union, and footwear and food processing. The picture on the left-hand side was taken in a pepper processing plant in Battambang province. The processing plant was built in cooperation with a Japanese partner. Sorry, it's not pepper, it's rice, and rice is dried and then sorted into quality groups. The best quality is exported, the mid quality is consumed internally, and the lowest quality is used for industrial processing, for instance, for distilleries. The main export partner of Cambodia is China, and then China re-exports Cambodian products all over the world. As the minister mentioned, tourism is very important. We all know that the Angkor Wat temples and Angkor Thom, the medieval capital of Cambodia, the remains can still be seen. The tourism concentrates in Sihanoukville on the seaside and in a number of other seaside towns, and there are a few islands off the coast. The construction industry is developing really well. You saw that in that video that was displayed as an introduction. We could also see the panorama of Phnom Penh behind my back. In terms of exports and imports, as discussed by the minister, well, the main exports, that's textiles and footwear, food products such as rice and spices, including pepper, the world's best quality pepper. Imports, that's basically everything. Cambodia imports virtually everything because of the construction boom. The country needs construction supplies, machinery and materials, all sorts of power equipment, hardware. Because of the importance of agriculture, agriculture machinery is another important group of imported products, followed by foods, all sorts of consumer goods, starting with staples over to luxury goods, fertilizers, crop protection agents, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetics. If you stop at a gas station somewhere in the interior, then there is this store with the gas station, and everything in that store, chocolate bars over to beverages, all of that is imported. So you can export just anything to Cambodia. The minister also spoke about the highly developed services sector. We already spoke about tourism. Now let's talk about legal and business services. and infrastructure that works really well in the country. It's supported by the central and local administration. At all the meetings that we had, our interlocutors confirmed that they are ready and they will be happily assist companies that would like to develop their business in Cambodia. I believe that the legal and administrative system in Cambodia is the most investor-friendly among all ASEAN countries. So after this general overview of Cambodia and its economy, let me give you a few snapshots of our study visits, which I hope was just a beginning to further more intensive cooperation. So the study visit confirmed that the Cambodian partners are open and willing for cooperation, and I'm talking both about central administration and local administration and chambers of commerce. I think that Cambodia should be seen as a great destination, the best destination in the whole ASEAN region. If I were launching my operations in Asia, I would put my headquarters right there. As far as central administration is concerned, as His Excellency Minister mentioned, we visited the Ministry of Commerce of the Kingdom of Cambodia, and the meeting was chaired by the Secretary of State from the ministry, Ms. Tekret Kamrang. The delegation was quite large and included Mr. Pin Tira, Head of Planning and International Cooperation Office, and our chamber cooperates with that office directly. As you can see, the delegations were quite big on both sides, so this was a very ceremonial and working meeting. We were more than certain that our delegation was treated very importantly. The minister reassured us that Polish companies who wish to cooperate with Cambodia can count on full support of her ministry and the Planning and International Cooperation Office and all levels of local administration in the provinces. Now let's talk about provinces. We visited two of them. The first one was Siem Reap. The arrows on the map show Siem Reap and Odar Mansi provinces. And there's a Siem Reap Odar Mansi Chamber of Commerce that covers the territory of the two provinces. In Siem Reap, we visited the provincial hall, we visited the local chamber of commerce, and we visited a private university, Angkor University. At the governor's office, again, we were welcomed by a large delegation headed by Mr. Lee Samrath, Vice Governor of Siem Reap, and that meeting was attended by a number of people, including the head of the International Cooperation Office and chairman of Young Entrepreneurs Association of Cambodia, and obviously chairpeople of the Regional Chamber of Commerce. When we went to visit the Siem Reap Odar Mansi Chamber of Commerce, which, as I explained, covers two provinces, we met the whole managing board, including the president, Mr. Hui Thieve, and vice president, Mr. Siem Reap. The president is the gentleman second from the left. The gentleman to the left is the vice president. Once again, we were reassured about complete openness for cooperation between Poland and Cambodia. Our partners are hugely interested in fostering the cooperation between the two countries, and we signed an MOU between Siem Reap, other Menshi Chamber of Commerce, and the Polish Chamber of Importers, Exporters, and Cooperation. And this confirms that Cambodia is very much interested in cooperation with Poland. As I mentioned, we also visited Angkor University, which is a private university, and we were welcomed by the Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, and a lady representing the Office of International Cooperation. We were told that the university will be happy to cooperate with Polish universities, research institutions, and companies. The minister mentioned that the Cambodian population is dominated by young people. Half of Cambodians are below 25 years of age, and you can see that in that picture. The chancellor of the university standing with me in that picture is a very young guy. The university was particularly interested in cooperation with the Poznan University of Life Sciences in such areas as animal husbandry, crop farming, and food processing, which still requires major investments in Cambodia. The next province that we visited was Battambang. And first, we went to meet the governor in Battambang Provincial Hall, and then we visited the Battambang Chamber of Commerce. In the hall, we met a delegation chaired by Ms. Soem Bunrit, the vice governor of Battambang, and they were 10 highest-ranking representatives of the administration, including the head of public relations and international office, Mr. Kan Buntol, with whom we have direct contacts and with whom we cooperate regularly. We also met the Vice Chancellor of Battambang University and the Chairman of Battambang Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Thu Vesna. Quite importantly, in Cambodia, chambers of commerce cooperate very closely with public administration. Chambers of commerce liaise with governors' offices, with regional administration. Our visit to the regional chamber of commerce, you can see a snapshot here. Mr. Thu Vesna, another young gentleman, he took us to the rice processing plant, which I showed to you earlier on. Mr. Vesna clearly emphasized the close cooperation of his chamber with the public administration, and Battambang is no exception. All provinces do that. Again, we signed another memorandum of understanding between Battambang Chamber of Commerce and the Polish Chamber of Importers and Exporters. Let me mention one fact. In the early afternoon, when we had a meeting in the chamber, I proposed the Battambang Chamber to sign an MOU, and they were so interested that after I gave them a draft of the MOU, they just took a few hours to consult this with the governor's office, and on the same day in the evening we signed the memorandum. Obviously, as you have probably guessed, the Chamber reassured us that they will offer full support in terms of imports and exports between Cambodia and Poland. One more slide about the EuroCham Cambodia, European Chamber of Commerce. I will be very brief about this because the next presentation will be delivered directly by EuroCham Cambodia. So let me tell you that EuroCham works to foster cooperation between European Union and Cambodia. It represents roughly 350 European member companies. On the website of EuroCham, you will see the full list of those members. And after that visit, we signed another MOU between EuroCham and the Polish Chamber of Importers and Exporters and Cooperation. And after that memorandum, our cooperation that has continued for 10 months now is very active. EuroCham sends us updates about the most important business events in Cambodia, about meetings, conferences, about new regulations passed by the local administration, about some political developments. So EuroCham keeps us up to date about what's going on in Cambodia. During our visit in Cambodia, we were accompanied by Makeyourasia.com. That's a company that co-organized the study visit. That's a company that actively supports Polish companies in the Indochina Peninsula. The gentleman that you can see on the slide is Mr. Bogusławski, who actually comes from Poznań, our capital city. So we signed an MOU with Makeyourasia, and we actually did some projects so far, and Łukasz will have a presentation today as well. So, the cooperation that we started, the MOUs that we signed, this is not only a foundation for actual cooperation, it also creates a legal, formal framework for that cooperation. So, the framework is there. We are ready to support you. The infrastructure and the specialists of our chambers of commerce and people from our partners in Cambodia are there for you. So thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to working with you. Now let me quickly introduce the EuroCham presentation that will be delivered by Mr. Denis Saint-Marie, the Managing Director, and Mr. Guillaume Malteverne, Outreach Coordinator at EuroCham Cambodia. Before the presentation, we'll show you a short video produced by EuroCham Cambodia.
Hello everyone, hello in Poland. Apologies for these technical issues. My name is Guillaume, I work at EuroCham, so we will be happy to deliver a presentation in a minute. So first of all, I give the floor to Executive Director of EuroCham, Mr. Denis Saint-Marie.
Thank you very much, Guillaume. Thank you very much, Mr. Łyko, for your kind words regarding our ongoing partnership. And it was very nice for the team to welcome you in January and following your visit to sign an MOU. And today is actually part of our mandate in terms of outreach and services, as EuroCham Cambodia is the main entry point in Cambodia for European business. Our main mandate actually is to provide support to European companies in the reorientation of their supply chains towards Cambodia and facilitate their entry into the Cambodian market by various services, providing understanding of the rules and regulation that govern Cambodia's business environment. And as it was outlined by His Excellency Mr. Bora Samheng, Cambodia is very friendly for foreign investment. We are also acting as a single point of contact for the European business community and as a liaison with the Royal Government of Cambodia and local companies and members. EuroCham Cambodia was established 10 years ago. We will have the pleasure to celebrate our 10 years anniversary next year in June. As it was said, we have around 350 members and 6 national chapters. And I hope that one day we could have also a Polish chapter with us as a constituent of our organization. In terms of activities beyond outreach and services, we also develop initiatives in terms of networking for members, of course, advocacy with regular publication of the White Book. The White Book is a flagship publication for organizations. It contains recommendations and it is published every 2 years, every 18 months, every 2 years. And it is the result and also a tool for a very intense and constructive dialogue with the Cambodian authorities. After 10 years, EuroCham Cambodia is the most influential and active Foreign Business Association, thanks to the dedication of his team, the involvement of his members through sectorial committees, through the organization of events and so on. And during the last 6 years, thanks to the support of the European Union delegation in Cambodia. I want also to outline the openness of the Cambodian authorities. Always welcome ideas, always open for discussion. The Cambodian authorities have established various venues for encouraging a constant dialogue with private sectors. As it was said by a previous speaker, there is a momentum for economic reform in Cambodia, which is created by the urge of rapid post-COVID-19 recovery. In this context, European Chamber of Cambodia pursue its advocacy to promote Cambodia as a potential sources destination for non-government higher value goods and advocates manufacturing and export diversification. We also, we have a very good understanding of this issue by our main counterparts, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economy, the CDC, the Council for the Development of Cambodia, regarding the importance to integrate the climate targets within the Cambodian legislation and to essablish some kind of tax incentives and clear regulation framework. We will be very pleased to achieve a clear commitment by Cambodia to the European Union Green Deal goals. Also, Cambodia has a potential for digital economy and is very well located in Asia. But I will finish my welcome words here because actually my colleague Guillaume, who is our outreach manager, has prepared for you a presentation which will complement the excellent presentation made by His Excellency Mr. Bora Samheng, and give you also some tips regarding how to establish your business in a practical manner in Cambodia. Thank you very much. Guillaume.
Thank you very much, Denis, and hi everyone in Poland. So let's get started. First of all, as European Chamber of Commerce, we often observe that there is a perception gap about Cambodia. I believe if you ask people randomly in Poland what they think about Cambodia, they will not necessarily describe the reality of the country. So here is a picture that illustrates what means a constant strong economic growth. You can see the result in just 8 years. The picture on the right is 4 years ago, and if it was taken yesterday, there will be additional tall buildings. This is a picture in Phnom Penh. Here it's a city called Siem Reap. This is on the coastal area, and you can see the difference in 10 years. What you see, the picture below, is a direct effect of massive Chinese investments. So some key facts. I don't want to repeat what the other guest speaker mentioned before. I would just say the location of Cambodia is a natural hub. You can see on this map that Cambodia is in between, I would say, larger Southeast Asian countries such as Thailand and Vietnam. It has access to the Gulf of Thailand. So this is definitely a natural asset for the country, especially when we think about global supply chain. About the main city, we chose to indicate 4 cities: Phnom Penh, the capital, Siem Reap, which is a touristic hub related to Angkor Wat. Battambang is the second largest city. What is interesting to know, this is on the corridor from Phnom Penh to Bangkok. So Battambang has a great potential as, I would say, for tourism when tourists from Bangkok travel to Cambodia, to Siem Reap or to Phnom Penh. As it was mentioned by Mr. Łyko, Cambodia is using two currencies in daily life. So in my wallet, I have personally notes in real and US dollars. US dollar brought to Cambodia economic stability. This is 100% correct. The exchange rate is very stable, and in a very, very, very long term, this is expected. Like Cambodian real will have a larger role in daily, I would say, daily trade transaction. A great asset of Cambodia is, if you visit the country and want to do business, this is quite easy to interact with local partners directly in English. This is very rare when you will need the support of a local translator. I would say this is not necessarily the case in neighboring countries, so this is definitely an asset, and you can notice, like, I would say, not only the young generation can speak English. So when you have like a B2B meeting, you can have like a direct exchange, which is a great asset. As it was mentioned before, it's a very young population, so when you think about FMCG or selling your product, you will have to deal with a young population, which is very well connected. They all have a smartphone with the 4Gs, and they are all connected on social media. And when you have a country which has experienced some solid economic growth, there is an appetite for consumption. So that's why this start is extremely important. A few aspects, like it was also mentioned, is the 4 pillars of economic growth. Obviously, the stats you can see before COVID. COVID has had a very, very deep impact, especially on tourism due to the traveling restriction and also on government. However, this is expected it will remain a little bit like this, but we can see some changes that we will mention later on. This is an interesting statistic that shows sector contribution to GDP growth. You can see some stability actually between different sectors. So what will be very interesting is to see how it will change in the coming years. So I chose to show this picture because very often when you have presentation at Cambodia, we often talk about government, but as it was mentioned by His Excellency, nowadays the government is focusing on high-skilled labor. So it means like governments in Cambodia, the economic model of government is called cut, make, trim, which is basically to assemble the clothes. There is no production, the machinery are also imported, the textile is imported. But we can see a trend, very, very interesting trend, to see higher value industry that shows Cambodia as a destination for investment. What you can see here, it's a factory in one of the special economic zones. This one is located near Phnom Penh, and this is a Japanese automotive spare part manufacturer that chose Cambodia. They were in Thailand before, but they chose Cambodia because the infrastructure has improved a lot, and also due to a cheaper labor force. So I chose this one, but I could choose also electronics devices manufacturer, and obviously also bicycle. Just interesting statistics, during COVID-19, Cambodia has seen an export, I would say a growth of exportation of bicycle of 20% from January to September. And nowadays we can have bicycle made in Cambodia from Taiwanese brands. So a little bit about economic forecast. We chose to say on the road to recovery, because as you can see, there was an impressive growth in Cambodia for the last 2 decades, and it was stable around 7%. And what is extremely interesting is, according to the Asian Development Bank, the economy will bounce back in 2021. So this is the latest statistic from their review called Asian Development Outlook. So it shows, like this year, that there will be a negative economic growth, like in all the other Southeast Asian countries, but it will boost back in next year. So you can have some concern or some doubt, which is totally understandable. However, the next slide can, I would say, reassure you. Yes, sorry for technical issues. So this slide shows all the forecasts from different international organizations and the royal government of Cambodia and also the ASEAN. They use different economic model and different methodology, but there is a consensus to say Cambodia will experience again a positive economic growth next year. So I cannot say which organization will be the closest to reality, but what we can see is they all agree on that. So why invest in Cambodia? First of all, we have observed there was literally a switch in 2007 when the amount of foreign direct investment was higher than overseas development aid. So it means that the private sector has had a greater role than NGO and non-for-profit organization and of course all the UN agencies. A little bit about what is particularly appealing for an investor when considering Cambodia is, first of all, if you decide to create a business in Cambodia, it will be 100% yours. You don't need, according to the law, this is not compulsory to have a local partner. This is extremely interesting. And also, you can start very small in Cambodia, which is very often the right strategy. So the amount of capital you need to make in Cambodia is rather small. So in terms of risk, you can take limited risk to explore the Cambodian market. And also, we often say at EuroCham that Cambodia is a pro-business government, and I think the bullet points clearly indicate that they are welcoming foreign direct investors. So this is a little bit that summaries of why this is I would say a great country for investment. Is we can see opportunities in all the sector, and this is a direct effect of robust economic growth for decades. So there is high demand, which is changing all the time from a young population. Also, Cambodia is benefiting from different trade agreements, regional agreement with, of course, the ASEAN country, but also a general agreement from the ASEAN with other Asian countries such as Japan, South Korea, and China. Actually, as a matter of fact, Cambodia has signed recently and ratified a free trade agreement with China, and this discussion has been officially launched with South Korea. Quality of life, a growing middle class, we can see that. You can see with the picture more tall buildings, more cars in the street, more retails as well. And of course, as a young population, you can find labor forces in different sectors, you see. So the sector of opportunities, first of all, we would like to say, like, European companies are already enjoying the development of the Cambodian economy. You can see the logo of these companies. So what is interesting to see if they are successful in many different sectors. So where are the opportunities? So this is not, I would say, we just chose a few sectors that we can see are crucial for the coming years. So as it was mentioned by His Excellency, to find staff with skills is can be difficult sometimes in Cambodia. So to provide trainings and education to start to develop the skill and so they can fit the need of a company, of an employer, is very important. And we can see like many general managers, many entrepreneurs are often willing to provide this kind of training. So we can see, I would say, a demand for this. And keep in mind, this population can speak English. Food and beverage, This is a direct effect of the growing middle class. Actually, like maybe 7 years ago, there was one shopping mall or just a few shopping malls in Phnom Penh, and nowadays there are many projects of shopping malls. So the number of retail shops has increased significantly with different brands, and we can see also like franchises that are coming to Cambodia. To mention one example, 7-Eleven, which is a convenience store, very successful in Thailand, already made public they will come to Cambodia when the pandemic will be over. And we can see many public announcements from very large multinational companies that they came to Cambodia, they visited, and actually food and beverage is a promising sector. And we have noticed that the Cambodian population is very sensitive to the branding. So they want to see brands, they want to see the brands they see in the movies or on the social media. Healthcare. Cambodia is a young population. As a result, the population will get old. We usually, many Cambodian nationals chose to travel overseas to seek for medical treatment. Therefore, there is a need to improve some structure here, and we have seen already some foreign institutions opening hospital and clinic. It was mentioned by His Excellency, medical tourism. Dentistry is a great example of this. You can have excellent treatment for dentistry here for a very, very low fee, actually. So we see healthcare is growing. The middle class is aware of the need to dedicate some budget to the healthcare. So the supplement and of course, like let's say, healthcare insurance is growing extremely fast as well. So agriculture, agriculture is one of the 4 pillars of the economy. However, it is still on the way to be more and more modernized. So I think we can see there is a need to bring sometimes more mechanization on some segments. For some aspect of the agriculture, it's already mechanized, but not everything. And Cambodia is producing a lot of crops, and in particular fruit and vegetable. So agro-processing has very, very huge potential in Cambodia. And also, it is important to say, like, when a product is from Cambodia can be easily exported to the neighboring country because of its location and also because this is part of the ASEAN. So energy, water and waste business, population is growing, the cities are growing, and of course there are more and more waste generators. So we can see everything related to the circular economy as a good potential in Cambodia. There are like a number of events organized by the non-profit organization to bring the private sector to invest and to explore this sector. So we can see as a small scale, companies, often SMEs, trying to make a change. But we can see there is definitely a great potential because the city is growing very, very fast, in particular Phnom Penh. And Cambodia is still a rural country. So the population of Phnom Penh will continue to grow, as well as the opportunities. And since economy is developing and is related to what I said before about education and the need for higher skills labor force, we can see the consulting firm in Cambodia are rather busy. They are hiring not only by foreign investor or foreign company, but sometimes also by Cambodian companies. So there is definitely a potential for any company that provide advices to support the extension of businesses. So we often say Cambodia compared to other countries in Southeast Asia is maybe rather small in terms of population. However, there are so many untapped markets that can be seen maybe as a niche, but very often we have seen like companies coming to Cambodia. They started small, they explore a little bit the market, and they grow very, very fast. And sometimes they are growing so fast that it's difficult for them to meet the demand. So I think it is very important to say as well, like we have seen a number of companies that have been successful in other Southeast Asian countries because larger markets, and very often they will consider Cambodia as a +1 market. Competition is very low on some markets, so therefore it's like sometimes you can be the very first to introduce a product or service. So a little bit about us. Denise has introduced EuroCham very well. So yes, we were from like 10 years ago, and I will say just on this slide, 20 employees for a Chamber of Commerce is a lot. So it means we have like people that have some specialties, and we can be mobilized for a large-scale project as well. So what we do, we used to say we have like 4 pillars. Advocacy, this is public-private dialogue. You can see on the picture on the left, our former chairman with the Secretary General attached Minister of Council for Development of Cambodia. Business support, constituent services, that we mention a little bit later, but of course, we organize a lot of events for the business community. So the events are not only networking to exchange business cards, but it's also to have a conference or discussion on a particular topic. Today we do it about Cambodia, but sometimes we will do it about taxation. We can do it, let's say, about consumption protection, opportunities in the healthcare sector. So we have different events with different formats. So what we do as a Chamber of Commerce for any companies that wish to ask EuroCham for support, we do a little bit adversary services. So this is like market surveys, market analysis, which will be like in-depth reports. We have been working actually with the Embassy of the Netherlands to identify a business opportunity for Dutch companies. And we have also a very good relationship with the German development agencies that wants to bring the German private sector in Cambodia. Also, we have the classic mission of the Chamber of Commerce, which are business partner research. So company will approach EuroCham, will say, I want to know if my product can be sold in Cambodia. Can you find potential buyers? So we will approach companies, and this is not like a Google research. So we have here a network of interlocutors that are usually our members, and our members which have, I would say, a very comprehensive expertise per sector can make recommendation. And that's how we can, I would say, have a very good market intelligence following this. And for trade mission, of course, our job is to provide the logistics, to find the companies, to organize an event where companies can have B2B meetings. So this is our publication. We publish a lot. Denise, I show you which is the most relevant document, the White Book with a series of recommendations. Interesting statistic about the White Book. For the latest edition, around 70% of recommendation has been followed by the government. So there is a very, very good dialogue between the private sector and the Cambodian authorities here. What you can see as well is a business confidence survey. So we try to know how the business community is feeling regarding the doing business environment. And but also we go more and more digital. So this website will basically provide say information when you don't know anything in Cambodia. You will know more about the doing business environment. You will find relevant statistics and also some sector overview. You will see what is the procedure when you want to register a business, and you will know what are the interlocutors. So this is a website if you want to know more quickly about Cambodia. It has been designed in a way you don't need to spend so much time on it. So this is a little bit, this is a slide to congratulate ourselves. We have been quite successful, so we are happy to say that all the time. And now I would like to say thank you to the audience and thank you very much for inviting us to this event. The floor is yours, Lydia.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Representatives of EuroCham Cambodia will be with us during the questions and answers session. So thank you very much, Denis Sainte-Marie, Executive Director of EuroCham Cambodia, and Guillaume Maltverne, Outreach Coordinator at EuroCham Cambodia. So how to get ready to enter the market of Cambodia? Our next expert, Łukasz Kozłowski, the owner of CEO of Makeyourasia. Mr. Łyko mentioned about their involvement in the preparation of our study visit from the Wielkopolska region. And now a few words about the possibilities of the market in Cambodia will be just presented by Łukasz Kozłowski, who is from Wielkopolska region and from Poznań itself. So just the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon. Hello from Vietnam. I'm happy to be able to join you. As I have been introduced, I was born in Poznań, so the city is close to my heart. And as Makeyourasia, we have supported the Marshal Office in their business mission to Cambodia in January this year. We hope that when the pandemic is over, we will be able to continue our cooperation with Wielkopolska to share our insights with local companies. My name is Łukasz Kozłowski. I am the CEO and owner of Makeyourasia. To begin with, what is Makeyourasia? We have been operating in Southeast Asia since 2006. Our headquarters is in Ho Chi Minh or Saigon in Vietnam. We do two things. On the one hand, we actively support Polish companies in entering Southeast Asian markets. We concentrate on Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. And that's why we were part of the business mission to Cambodia. In this area, we follow two pathways. So on the one hand, we support brands and products to penetrate into Southeast Asia and to be successful here. On the other hand, we help producers find resources to import or to move, to relocate production to Asia. Another business of Makeyourasia is MICE, meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. And we cooperate with Polish companies, not only from Wielkopolska. We also cooperate with a number of central institutions such as the National Agricultural Support Agency and the Foreign Trade Agency. We have a number of successfully completed projects. Let me show you some of the incentives and barriers when we talk about business cooperation in Cambodia. So first of all, Cambodia is a rapidly growing market. Of course, the point of reference is pre-COVID. That was 7% growth of GDP, a high number of new investments, new hotels, new resorts. That's Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, Sihanoukville. And Siem Reap is the most tourist-oriented city in Cambodia. And a lot of residential projects, which is good news for Polish furniture producers or household goods producers. New hotels, that's great opportunities for FMCG or FMB goods. Cambodia is still lowly saturated with high-quality foreign products, and the local consumers are increasingly aware. So middle-class consumers are looking for quality products. They want something that is imported from the US or the European Union, and they are ready to pay a little bit more. And they care about an EU or US brand, especially when compared to Chinese or Thailand products. The next important thing is the growth of urban areas, Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, Sihanoukville, Battambang. The interior is mostly agricultural, but these metropolitan areas are growing. So when you want to enter Cambodia, you should pick one urban area and start from there. Also, when you think about moving your production facilities to Cambodia, then there are special economic zones that offer a lot of incentives. So please look at that more closely when you consider moving your manufacturing operations from China, for instance. And one thing that is of special importance is the possibility to combine Cambodia with Vietnam and or Thailand. So you can have one central warehouse in Cambodia and then distribute products to 3 countries. So you have a market that is waiting for you, and you have good cooperation, also logistical cooperation between those countries. Now let's talk about barriers. Well, the country is relatively small, roughly 17 million people. The distance from Europe, well, the whole Southeast Asia is quite far from Europe. So when you ship your products by sea, then the travel time is 2 months. So the delivery is quite long, and the shelf life is reduced by those 2 months. Poland as a brand does not exist in Cambodia. Poland has not built a powerful brand. There are no recognizable Polish products here. So whenever you want to enter that market, you have to make your choice whether you want to introduce yourselves as an EU product, or maybe you want to build a marketing for a Polish brand. Because that would require some investments, but if Polish companies and Polish institutions start building a brand, then the success is guaranteed. The road and rail infrastructure is poorly developed, so this creates some logistical problems. the motorway network is in the planning or early construction stage, but as for today, the road networks is not very extensive, so this requires a special approach to your logistics. And we know that Polish F&B and FMCG companies are interested in this market. This market is dominated by the so-called wet markets, small family stores, and small retail networks such as Circle K or Family Mart. So this determines your distribution mode. If you want to go nationwide, if you only want to distribute to a metropolitan area, then it's completely different. Now, a number of steps that are very important. We always talk about this steps to make before you enter the market. So you need to research the market. If you want to be here, so you need to make some market research to understand the prices. You need to understand the positioning of your products compared to competitive products. Polish products, especially at the first stage of import, are quite expensive, not very competitive. So to begin with, you either have to lower your prices or you have to reduce your margin to enter the market. Then you need to try to understand the product's potential in social classes. F&B products are much more competitive. They have much more potential, especially because there are a lot of middle-class consumers who have kids, who have babies. They are looking for European products. They don't want Chinese products, which are inferior. You need to also define the most efficient supply chain. Cambodia has a lot of local distributors. If you want to be successful with your product, you have to build your or define your supply chain as soon as possible. And then you need to understand the investment you will have to make when you want to enter the market. So that's the money other than the very shipment of products. And it doesn't matter whether it's furniture or technology or F&B. You always have to make some investments to succeed. So I'm talking about things like marketing, like support for distributors or importers, because they will be expecting that. After you make a comprehensive market research, and we can help you with that, you need to develop your market entrance strategy. So you need to define your legal form. This is fairly general to Southeast Asia as such, but in Cambodia, you need to define whether you want to open your own subsidiary, your own affiliated company, or perhaps you want to have an agent that represents you, at least in the beginning, or maybe you want to distribute directly to local companies. All that depends on your funds, on the investment you're ready to make, and on how much to what extent you are prepared to take some risks. And distribution to local companies is the cheapest, but it's the most risky. A representing agent seems to be the reasonable solution, especially for smaller companies. Now, marketing strategy. Well, many products that will be shipped, that they need a right marketing strategy, preferably created by local agencies that understand the local consumers. Those consumers are completely different than in the European Union, which many Polish companies seem to forget. The simplest, the most basic marketing tools are still efficient in Cambodia. Number 3, organization of meetings with potential distributors and importers. So many companies stop right there when they ship their products to Cambodia, but then they just don't get distributed all over the country. So that's very important. And this takes us to the next point. So organization of meetings with those distributors and importers. So that's about product testing and product adaptation. As I said, Cambodian consumers are completely different than European consumers. So if you want your products to be successful, you have to adapt those products. You have to send samples. You have to organize a number of local visits to Cambodia to build the right relations and to create a network of trusted partners who will make your product successful, especially the adaptation to local consumers. That's especially foods and beverages. Local taste preferences are completely different, or cosmetics also. Cosmetics need to be adapted to the local climate, local skin color. If you don't do that, you will fail. If you want to move your production operations to Cambodia, then you should also be here. You should meet people face to face. You should look for the right special economic zone with good access to resources, to logistics. Sihanoukville is the biggest port, so perhaps you should be looking for an economic zone between the capital city and Sihanoukville. So that's in a nutshell what you have to do if you want to explore Cambodia. If you have any specific questions, please drop us an email. We will try to match you with trusted business partners, and we're looking forward to seeing you here. Łukasz will be with us during the discussion. I do encourage everyone to ask questions through our chat facility. Now we'll move on to the debate. Mr. Andrzej Łyko from the Polish Chamber of Importers, Exporters and Cooperation will be helping me out. Before we move on to a discussion with our experts and guests, let's have a final and last look at the video from Cambodia, just to get rid of stereotypes that we still may harbor. Welcome back. So time for discussion. That's something we always look forward to. We have Mr. Denis Saumari from EuroCham Cambodia, whom we've seen. Mr. Guillaume Martaverne, outreach coordinator from EuroCham. Łukasz Kozłowski from Makeyourasia. Paweł Mokrzycki, the attaché for business in the Polish embassy from Bangkok. So that's a new addition to our lineup. Ewa Jankowska. In 2013, she came to Cambodia. Now she owns a bakery and a catering company by the name Pelican Food Company. Kamila Władyczyńska and Adam Kortecki, owners the One Resorts and a number of other businesses. And Adam is from Poznań, and Marta Grenda, also from Poznań, translator and interpreter of the Khmer language. She spent a number of years in Cambodia and developed an online platform, and I can see some views, some landscape from the One Resort in Cambodia. Let me start with Mr. Paweł Mokrzycki from the embassy. His Excellency Secretary of State spoke about the fast, rapid growth of Cambodia and the growing commercial exchange between Poland and Cambodia, 20% growth between 2015 2019. What are the outlooks? What are the perspectives for businesses from the perspective of an embassy? What kind of support can you offer? Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing the event. This is highly valuable. We, as the embassy, surely supports the bilateral exchange between the two countries, so the initiative is more than welcome. As regards what the embassy is doing to support businesses, this includes facilitation of contacts between the two countries, that's intermediation in contacts with public administration if necessary or if requested by the company. We also support companies in meeting official requirements, also in terms of sanitary requirements. And we also promote investment opportunities. Let me say that the Polish embassy in Thailand serves 4 countries. That's Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, and Cambodia. And as you know, the Polish Agency of Investments and Trade has a network of offices that support Polish investments globally. As for now, we don't have an office in Cambodia, but unofficially, I can say that the trade office from Thailand will extend its operations to include Cambodia and Laos. That would be very good news, because this would give Polish businesses a dedicated institution that would support them. You asked about trade exchange. As His Excellency Minister mentioned, the figures are growing. There are some fluctuations year to year, but the balance stabilized at a level of $300 or $400 million per year. For this year, we don't have the full year's data, but it seems that this year, despite the pandemic, the figure will be higher. However, the structure of our exchange is that 95% of this exchange is imports from Cambodia to Poland. Cambodia has become one of the global textile centers, and over 90% of Polish imports from Cambodia, that's clothing and footwear. As regards Polish exports to Cambodia, that would be under $20 million this year. And this year, the dominating products, that's semi-finished products for clothing. Also some malt. And if I may take this opportunity, let me recommend to you some sources of information about the Cambodian market and other markets as well. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has those bulletins, those fact books that contain information about given markets and contain a lot of references. And such a fact book for Cambodia is also available. So for those of you who would be interested in international procurement procedures, let me refer you to the website of the Ministry of Development, and there's a tab of international procurement projects. You will find all information about tenders that are underway all over the world and from all the industries. Now, you asked about potential expansion industries. A lot of them have been mentioned today. Let me add 2 or 3. That's the power sector. Maybe that's something for the bigger players, but as has been mentioned, Cambodia's demand for energy has been growing at a rate of 20% a year. So companies in such industries as gas, renewables, or coal, because Cambodia still has coal-fired power plants, so that's a major area for growth. Cambodia will soon start exploring its oil fields, so Polish refinery business can enter. Also, road projects. The country plans to build a lot of roads and railways. Phnom Penh will have its subway, and Polish companies could deliver rolling stock for that subway. And from the perspective of individual consumers, then IT is an interesting industry. Well, more and more aspects of our life are going online. The Cambodian society is using online tools more and more often. So online tools, gaming solutions, also solutions for the public administration. That's a growing market, and I'm sure that Polish companies could explore that. Yes, we are hoping for that, and we are hoping that Polish companies will make a contribution. Now I'm looking at Camila and Adam, and the construction site that's right behind you. I'm glad it's there because when we spoke, you mentioned that it may be too dark, but it's not too dark, so I'm glad that those excavators can be seen. So your journey was supposed to take 6 months, and you've spent there 6 years. So please tell us about the projects and the investments you're doing, and why Cambodia.
Prosimy o włączenie mikrofonu. Widać was doskonale, ale nie słychać. O, teraz.
Good morning, good afternoon. Greetings from Cambodia. Why Cambodia? It was, in a way, kind of a coincidence. We were traveling and we just reached the island where now we have our one resort place. When we came here 6 years ago in February, we just fell in love with this place, with this island. We just understood that this place is full of prospects, perspective. Everything was just developing there. And we decided that this place and Cambodia as a whole has a great opportunities for development. So we decided to take the risk and create something that would be our own. We also felt that this market is very similar to the Polish market in the 1990s, that it's not many goods are available on the market, so it is easy to provide. There are no platforms where the goods might be available. It took us a lot of time to find materials, finishings, furniture, just to construct the new resort. And together with our partners from the Wielkopolska, we also created MyPSAR. That was the portal to allow foreigners and also to teach the Cambodians to use that, to find easily products they need and also to sell products. So to promote foreign products like from Poland or other countries. And actually, it worked out. So this e-commerce platform was successful. Also, our first hotel was developing, was getting more and more popular day by day. And it's the word of mouth contributed to the fact that this became one of the most successful hotels on the Cambodian coast. And MyPSAR, this e-commerce platform, step by step, with the assistance of Abchans from Poznań and a few Polish people who cooperate with us in Phnom Penh. So this platform has been developing, getting more and more successful, having more and more users. Now in the COVID times, we observed a considerable increase in our activities. So people are afraid of the pandemic, and they really use e-commerce for ordering food. So we have online supermarkets. So any possibilities, opportunities that without going out, they can just procure what they really need. And the third element that was an argument was local people in our hotel, all our staff. They are our family. So they live in the hotel itself. So we have facilities, accommodation. So they stay with us 24 hours a day. So it's like living together. We know each other very well, and we can count on each other. And it's not only the relationship between the employer and employees, but it was frequently we just used to encounter behavior which was really enjoyable. We decided to stay here, to just move down here, just to invest. I would like to ask you a question. Sofa Design Center, because probably, as you know, Wielkopolska is the valley of furniture industry, and this is one of the main export fields. So not only for Wielkopolska, but also Poland in general. What do you think? What are the opportunities for export of Polish furniture, Wielkopolska furniture from Poland to Cambodia, especially as far as office furniture? Of course, the taste is different here. Well, yes. Here they prefer whatever is the luxurious gold, diamonds, and all types of velvet, something that it's not fashionable and trendy, but the young people, they just change a little bit that taste. They prefer the European trends, European designs. When we see the need, when we were looking for furniture to our hotel, for a home, for the MyPSAR office, we just noticed that there is the selection, the availability on the market is not too much. So 2 years ago, we opened this company, the Samheng, and this is run by our colleague. He was supposed to connect with us here, but he had to attend to another meeting. So import furniture from the Wielkopolska region, from Kempnon, from some other regions. I'm not going to give the names now. So the sofas and beds. As it was said before, Cambodia is expanding in that enormous tempo. So day by day, new buildings are created, constructed, office buildings, apartment houses, apartment buildings, office buildings, hotels. So I guess in a couple of years, Phnom Penh or Sihanoukville will look like Bangkok, Singapore. So we noticed that more and more people who really want to invest, they want to pay for the quality. So what is available, the furniture available from China, the quality is not so good. So step by step, we decided to provide furniture, starting from hotel furniture, but also those that can be suitable for private apartments. So there are more and more wealthy people. The middle class is growing. They appreciate that. They recommend us to their friends. And if it was not for the distance and the time necessary to just deliver the furniture from Poland, I'm sure that our company would have developed much faster and the sales would have increased. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask a question for our colleagues from EuroCham. So during today's proceedings, as you could see, Poland does not have any official representatives in Cambodia from diplomatic level or economic level. Apart from yourselves, we also have Mr. Kozłowski from Makeyourasia who is present. So now my question is as follows. Briefly, a Polish company who wants to enter the market in Cambodia can address you, maybe via our chamber. Can they address you to ask for assistance to find a potential partner and to assess the potential success of entering the market in Cambodia? Can we rely on you?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, of course. So usually this is how we proceed. A company will contact us, and the first things we will do is to know exactly what they have in mind and if they know Cambodia. Because sometimes during the presentation, we indicated very interesting macroeconomic statistics, 7% economic growth, young population, and with picture of development of Phnom Penh. So we need to know exactly in which sector, what do they know about Cambodia and Southeast Asia in general. When we know their projects, we can then propose some of our services. And so the idea is to propose what would be the most relevant service. So if it's just because usually companies that don't know anything about Cambodia or has no previous experience in Southeast Asia, the most relevant service would be like a feasibility study. It would be like to explore the market to know if the product or the service has a potential. Because Cambodia is a rather small market, so sometimes many competitors will come at the same time if the market is saturated. So what we do is to know, to identify what would be the best interlocutor to have this market intelligence. And then we will write a small report to provide, I would say, some recommendation to the company.
If I may elaborate, just to EuroCham provide free initial consultation to all inquiries. Also, of course, for more advanced services will be provided for a fee. But for sure, our services department team is replying to all inquiries that we are receiving, giving general ideas, some specific advice, and for extending services, there is no limit actually. It will depend on the topic, on the purpose, regarding the scope of services. Later on, we can adapt ourselves and get the good expertise on board. And on our website, you have the menu of the services. And we can also tailor, according to the need, other services. But the main idea that I want to share with you, there is a free initial consultation for any European company who start to interact with us.
Yeah, and I will add, we have like in-house expertise. So let's say if tomorrow, I don't know, Polish, let's say, I would say wine producer contact us and say, how is the market going in Cambodia? Are people consuming more wine? I would say, yes, according to the statistics, they are consuming more and more wine. And we can see the consumption of alcohol per capita is growing, but they all consume the same products. So if your product is not the one they are looking for, you will not make a business here. So we need to go into the details, and this conversation, which is obviously for free, when we are happy to provide general information, will help, I would say, the Polish company to know if there is a potential or no to come to Cambodia.
At the end, I would like to thank you very much for putting the symbol of our chamber that I can see on the wall behind you. Thank you. It's very nice. Thank you. Thank you. So we do hope for further cooperation. You can see that, oh, Camila just disappeared to attend the child. So we can see not only companies develop in Cambodia, also families expand. And another business, successful business in Cambodia, Ewa Jankowska, who is the owner of the bakery and catering company who supplies food to supermarkets, and her husband also runs the company, consulting company and event company in Cambodia. I know you love this country. Probably, please share with us what were the advantages that were decisive factor to start the business in Cambodia. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I was really touched by the openness of Cambodian, the smile on their faces, and I think it was the same that Adam and Camila experienced. Just everything just seemed to facilitate, to foster our activities. When we, as entrepreneurs, we feel that the wind just pushes us forward. This is really nice. So Cambodia was like a virgin island in a way when I went there 8 years ago almost. It was completely different countries than it is right now. It developed so quickly. It's incredible how fast. And I remember the times when I was just walking down the streets on one day, and next day I could just notice 2 more buildings, a new restaurant opened. So it was just happening in real time, and it was encouraging to start new businesses, new projects. The possibilities, if in the F&B sector, that the sector we operate in, the possibilities, opportunities are enormous. Cambodian Khmers are very open to Polish people. This is my personal experience. It was very surprising for me because I've traveled a lot. My husband is from New Zealand. He lived in Singapore. Whenever I said I was from Poland, many people would just misunderstand Poland for Holland. But in Cambodia, people know about Poland, where we are, and maybe there are some shared elements of our histories that make us like more familiar. And it seems that people from Cambodia, they trust products from Poland. It's not that Chinese products, the association is maybe not so positive, but Poland, oh, that's Europe, so they are more open to that. So there was this new situation that we just designed new labels for our products going to supermarkets. And I said, okay, we could maybe just write that in the Khmer language. And they said, no, you can write it in English because it would suggest that it's for Western European product, so maybe it will be more popular. So I just great trust that they have Poland, Polish products, Polish people. That's one thing. Climate as such is great. Business climate is even better. We have very positive experience in cooperation with the Ministry of Commerce. Also, taxes, we have positive experiences. So also with the local tax office, Inland Revenue Office, our experience is also positive. We're also again surprised how how quickly it developed. So great prospects for further development. Many economic aspects have been already mentioned, highlighted by previous speakers. You mentioned the Khmer language and how to adjust your offer, the labels of your products to be present on the market. With us, we have the presence of the translator of Khmer language, so also from Poznań. So of course that she can assist in that as well. You also mentioned a group of Cambodians who like our country, are familiar with our country, people who studied in Poland in the 1970s and 80s. Can they be support in looking for local partners and business contacts? Maybe Marta, could you just make a comment on that? Hello. Okay. Yes, there is a group of Cambodians who studied in Poland in 1970s and 80s. Usually those people are on the high-ranked positions. Some of them are deans at universities. There is one gentleman who has his own hospital. There is one person who works as a historic monuments conservation, the lady who is a director of National Library. So people have different understanding, a better understanding of Poland because they used to study in Poland. And when we look about support, when we talk about support for people as partners in business, maybe they are not just looking for employment, but they have great knowledge, and it's worthwhile to meet them and talk to them, and they know a lot about the country, something that we are not familiar with. So we do hope for this openness, for this friendship between our nations. We talked about this e-commerce platform, MyPsar. So maybe if you could share a little bit of your impressions, your experiences about this e-commerce. Yes, I worked for MyPsar e-commerce. So as you can see, my Adam and Camila, my bosses, are present here. I still translate from time to time for TOFA Design Center. So as it was mentioned, MyPsar is e-commerce platform, and it works a little bit like Polish e-commerce platform OLX, so we can just sell our products or procure for products that we need. So this is the direct contact with the seller and buyer. So this project is still developing, and it's a great difference when we compare the situation as it was at the beginning as it is now. So after 5 years, we have this development that we have the possibility of providing delivery or ordering delivery or making payment online. So initially, 5 years ago, such services were not available. So we can really see that within the last 5 years, the changes are enormous. If we ask the question, who can be successful in Cambodia in e-commerce is concerned, I guess that can be anybody who prepares, offers an attractive product that make life easier for people. So sometimes we can encounter problems that we are not familiar with in Poland, let's say. So for example, addressing. If we, for example, have an address and we should go to building number 6, it doesn't mean that we are just nearby. If we are near building number 5, that could be on the other side of the street. No. Also deliveries to the rural areas. The addresses is one problem, but also delivery companies. There are courier companies who deliver goods. So if we order something online, it is delivered. However, if it comes to delivery to rural areas, it's a problem. There are no roads, it's expensive, the service is expensive. So such challenges we have to face at the moment, something that we cannot imagine in our context. So for me, the idea that if you could just have places to leave the parcel, like the package dispensers, can be a solution. We don't have enough specialists to create this type of software housing, something that the centers for training of local specialists, definitely there is a need for that. But on the other hand, there is a great competition because more and more software houses are being opened at the moment. Just to be successful in this sector, first of all, you need to have a good idea for business, and secondly, you have to act fast, because if you miss the opportunity, the right timing, then it will be too late. Now, I would like to ask Łukasz. In his presentation, he told us what Polish entrepreneurs should think about when they want to enter the market in Cambodia, so how they should prepare. So I would like to ask you, because we've heard that, how we can be assisted. I cannot hear your question for some reason.
Nie słychać pytania, mamy jakiś mały techniczny problem. Czy teraz jest lepiej?
Andrzeja nie słyszę.
A teraz mnie pan słyszy?
And now, is it better now? Because there's a problem with the question from Andrzej.
To ja poproszę zaraz techników o sprawdzenie.
So I would just ask our technical assistants to check the microphones. I would like to ask about representatives of our businesses in Cambodia, how this pandemic, this COVID-19 influenced your activities. We can see that your construction site is in progress, so we can change.
Well, actually, we planned to open the new site for Christmas, but because of COVID, we have a considerable delay. Right now we still have restrictions on travel, so right now we only have local guests, so some expats and some people from Phnom Penh who can't go abroad, so they come to our island. So it's not that bad. But many other outlets have closed down on the island, so the pandemic hit the local hotel industry as well. Some businesses closed down permanently, others just suspended their operations until the situation changes. Yeah, I hope that right after the borders are open, the situation will stabilize, and many investors hope for that, because Cambodia is still growing. A lot of new hotels mushroom, even in our island. In January, road constructions began. They are scheduled to complete December, so that's 80 kilometers. Another 80 will be constructed next year, and I think that this will inspire further growth of the island. Sihanoukville is developing its airport to handle 20 to 30,000 passengers a day, most of whom will be from China and from outside Asia. So our project is well underway, and we hope to open the other hotel soon. Okay, fingers crossed. We encourage other businesses to think about Cambodia, think about your product. As Marta said, this is the perfect timing. Wait, hold on. Łukasz, can you hear me right now? Yes, I can hear you. Because I would like to ask you about the support for Polish SMEs. You told us what you can offer. Sorry, we heard what the embassy can offer together with the Polish Agency for Commerce and Investments. We heard about EuroCham. And you, in your presentation, spoke about what companies have to do, what they need to do to effectively succeed in the Cambodian market. So what could Makeyourasia do to help companies succeed? Obviously, I'll be happy to tell you about this. So we cooperate with companies who want to enter the market, so we accompany them all the way. So we are there at the market research stage. We can even be the representing office. We have a branch office in Thailand and Cambodia. We also wanted to open another one in the Philippines, but the COVID stopped us from doing that. So in this way, we can cut the cost that the Polish company would normally have to pay, because the cost may be prohibitively high. The currency exchange is not that favorable. So $1,000 for a British company is much less than that for a Polish company. But we can become the representative company. We can find a local man who will help them grow the local market, to help them make the first steps. That's for companies who want to enter the market. And companies who want to build some relationships, then we can check some products, we can verify those products, we can check the supplier, we can make sure that everything is fine, that things are loaded on the container. So we can make sure that the contract and the contact between the two companies works fine. So on the one hand, we encourage Polish companies to invest because they are afraid. They are afraid of making a financial investment. Right. Eva, what would you say to those companies who think about Cambodia but are afraid to enter? Please turn on your mic. There's nothing to be afraid of. Cambodia is not scary. Well, the pandemic may not be the perfect timing for travel, but maybe it is a right timing for thinking about an investment. F&B as an industry is closely related to tourism. A major share of Cambodian economy is based on services, and tourism is an important part of service. Angkor Wat, for instance, which normally has millions of tourists each year, right now doesn't have any foreign tourists. So local hotels, local restaurants in Siem Reap had to shut down, whether temporarily or permanently. In Phnom Penh, the situation is a little bit better. Well, COVID or not, people have to eat. So that's good news for catering companies. But over the last couple of months, since April, a lot of competitors have opened, which is surprising. But the way we try to interpret this is that people who lost their jobs in another industry just came to the same conclusion that people have to eat. So let's start a bakery or a grocery store. Well, as with everything, things take time. But as Marta said, this is the perfect timing, and this is like the last-minute notice because the market is becoming more and more saturated. So there is still room for newcomers, and as we spoke to Lydia about the medical industry, this is an interesting area. So clinics such as labor clinics or formula milk. This is a young society, so all things babies. That's the right thing to do. So so don't be scared of cultural differences. I'm happy you mentioned the medical sector. We know that Cambodians who studied in Poland include a lot of doctors, so maybe they could help Polish companies how to enter the market and how to find the right contacts, the right people. Also, it has been mentioned that Cambodia is one of the youngest nations in the world. Marta, do you have any guidance in this regard? Please turn on your mic. Yes, as we have mentioned, most people have smartphones. So smartphones are everywhere. Even when you go to a local market, and the lady who sells fish has a smartphone. Not many people have PCs or laptops. Only the richer people, but smartphones are everywhere. So ideally, you want to market something that is advertised through smartphone media, such as Facebook or TikTok. And importantly, you should hire young, educated Khmers because they know the market, they know what is trendy, and many of them speak excellent English. And it is important to rely on their know-how, on their insights. So don't just bring in your own people, find people locally. That was a nice cultural summary. Would anyone else like to say some concluding remarks? If I may, yes, I very much agree with Eva that this is the best moment, the best timing to invest in Cambodia. And I must say that Polish companies missed their opportunities in Vietnam or Malaysia. Now, Cambodia and the Philippines. That's the time is now for those two countries. You have to go for it. You have to take the risk, and then you will succeed. If you just stand by and watch, then you will be left behind. Okay, so let's do it. Contacts are there. We have the support of EuroCham, the embassy, Makeyourasia. We have Polish entrepreneurs who have been doing very well, and I'm sure they will be happy to provide advice to other companies. Andrzej, I think we have to dash. Please remember that the Wielkopolska Development Fund has funds that can fuel your growth. So we do hope that we will soon conquer the Cambodian market. Yes, absolutely. And let me thank all of you for being with us today. We're in the middle of December, so let me wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope that in 2021, the pandemic will recede. We will all get our jabs, will be vaccinated, and we will be ready to explore Cambodia. Thank you very much. Thank you, Camila. Adam, thank you for the views. It was as if we were in Cambodia.